This is Melbourne. One of the most livable cities in the world. According to the Economist Economic Intelligence Unit, it was awarded as the second most livable city in the world, just behind Vienna, Austria. And there are good reasons as to why Melbourne was placed on that list. The EIU considered each place by 5 main different categories. Stability, the stableness of the economy and politics. Healthcare, the medical service provided to the citizenry. Culture and environment, the agriculture and cultural inheritance of the city. Education, and infrastructure, the ability to maintain architectures and structures. Melbourne was placed within these 5 categories in check. I mean, look at the place. It is incredible. The place is free and welcoming, and the civility around the city is very well organized and welcoming. Despite some may think that the city is not great, that's a saying. Not everything is perfect, and Melbourne is no exception. Today, we will be looking at one of many things that Melbourne is suffering from, a problem that has continued to suffer from the 20th century up until the present 21st century: housing affordability. Housing prices in Australia has become an epidemic. Young Australians in particular are the ones that should be concerning the most. Back in 2016, a report by the Australian Bureau of Statistics, ABS, released a figure of stats detailing the prices of houses in each of the major state cities. These include Melbourne, Sydney, and Canberra. The stats showed that all of them has a significant increase in their costs. And when it comes to costs, most of us consider factors like land prices, mortgages, then cities' water and electricity costs, maintenance, as well as the rent of your houses as substantial reasons as to why your house price is so high, right? Well, not necessarily. Back in the early 1970s, houses used to be relatively cheap, at least to your average consumers. But now, it is like a rocket ready to hit your wallet. Not only that the prices of houses nearly tripled, but some of them even quadrupled. Why? How did the price get extraordinarily high? It probably isn't because of the water prices, since the prices of those resources, while have gaining some cost, did not influence that much to the cost itself. So what is it? A lot of Australian, or at least Melbourneian, doesn't know about the subject, and most of them don't know about the cost of the issue. Through our survey, we found that the majority of people lived in suburban area, buying their house for $100,000 in the 60s. Then, within the 21st century, their houses raises up to nearly $2 million. This price is high, undoubtedly, and the Australian people think the same way. Then, you might ask, how did the price get so high? There are 3 influences as to why the prices of houses went so high. Let us first examine the first example: foreign intervention. In 2017, The Conversation, an independent news outlet, released an article detailing on what Sydneysiders think about the current housing prices. One of the questions that they were asked was, do you think foreign investment raises up the housing prices in Sydney? Here's a quick pie chart of their response. From this pie chart alone, you can see that most people really do think that the foreign investment from countries like China and America are the ones that are responsible for the increases in price. And they have good reasons to think so. Ever since the early 1970s, the Australian-Chinese relationship had risen. Both countries had lower regulations as well as tariffs on one another. However, that came at a big cost. Take a look at this stat. These one in yellow are the prices of houses back in the early 1970s, and now look at the one in blue. The price is double. Now remember, these are numbers coming from the 1970s and the 21st century. They don't account for what the costs are. However, there is a coincidental relationship between this data and the Australian relationship with China. Ever since 1972, both nations have cooperated under the system of each other's economy. China's is a huge conglomerate. They own companies like Foxconn and Country Garden Holding, the latter of which is a company dedicated to selling and buying real estate. In recent news, however, back in 2014, they invest in the Australian economy by putting in $65 million into real estate. This particular trend emerges when you see that they are buying Australian estate each and every year. In conclusion, this argument supports the idea that the real estate business is under the control of foreign investment and that there are evidence of such phenomenon. TPP and many other types of free market economic policies may be in the interference of Australian real estate, and that is something that all Australians should be concerned about. But some people don't think that way. They are more optimistic about the economic policies free market enterprises from other nations should enter because Australia has a great economy and we can handle it. They value economic prosperity. Australia has a great economy. Looking back at the EIU, Australia's stability rate is as high as much as the other countries on the top 10. In comparison, Australia has one of the biggest economies in the world. But can Australia fix this housing affordability by the means of economic prosperity? A journalistic paper titled The Spectator explained that the problem with the housing market is government and its regulation. Quote, zoning laws like Melbourne's or Sydney's restrict developments based on their height and on whether they are residential, commercial, or industrial in nature. Unquote. Previously mentioned laws are just a speckle across a whole list of other types of regulations. Advocate for less governmental interference and summary idealize the free market economy that could fix itself, and in this case, that is no exception. The last reason as to why people think that the prices of houses has increased is the overvaluation of houses in Melbourne. Houses within the inner city are extremely hard to purchase due to how many houses left over during the early 1970s. Developers and real estate agency begins to build houses in a fast amount of time. In the end, they ended up having houses lying within the inner city for absolutely no reason, which ended up increasing in price as they have to continuously build upon it to suit the current need of the modern generation. They invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into these houses, but they ended up failing at the end with not enough consumer buying them. Over time, these houses gain value, so when people decide to buy a new house for any amount of reason, the cost of those houses will have increased by millions. All of these arguments have fueled the debate over what is the right solutions as to how the prices should be fixed. Some people argue differently, and some don't. But what is the right solution exactly? To answer that, we must understand what is the right question. What are the most important reasons as to why the prices of houses going up? Well, if we take a look at the stats again, we can see that the majority of Australians believe that foreign investment is the one most important reason as to why the prices of houses gone so high. They are right. From what we have quoted from our research, the most possible reason as to why the prices of houses are so high is due to foreign investment increasing the prices of Australian goods. Think about it for a moment. Most people believed in it. Most professional opinions said that it is a considerable outcome and that it has some influences over the estate gain. The article from the conversation stated, almost 56% of the participants believe foreign investors should not be allowed to buy any residential real estate in Sydney, and only 18% believe this should be permitted. Over the 70s, going well over the 2000s, the estate market has risen ever since the relationship between China and Australia became more and more apparent. Undoubtedly, this is a factor that will contribute to what will be the housing crisis. This problem, or this variety of problems, can come down to one solution: government enforcement. Regulations are meant to protect goods and services. They are meant to protect the economy, otherwise it would go down in the wrong direction. In the first quarter of 2018, Parliament passed regulations relating to housing. One of them was relating to a tax imposing on foreign investors. By the middle of 2018, the price of houses eventually got into a deadline and stopped increasing. CoreLogic, an estate agency dedicated in researching and collecting information for the prices of houses in 2018, found that the price has been decreasing, with Sydney decreasing over 5% and Melbourne having a decrease of nearly 3%. So during the same period, taxes for small business went down as well, which could also be the reasons as to why the prices has gone down. So whether you believe that the markets should be regulated or not, it is best to say that investment from foreign investors are a big contribution towards the catastrophically high increase. This problem within the housing market isn't just about economic, it is about your friend and your family members. When they grow up, the inevitability of housing prices raising up to the point of no return will be a big deal. By the end, this problem is big, and from the insight of this little analysis, we can understand that the market affects us all, and that it is a hugely influential factor towards our lives. We must remember that this problem will lead to long-term effect, so we must do something about it. And whether you like it or not, the young will be the major player towards our decision, and that this problem of housing is big and inevitable towards the economy and you.
Poskedi!